So he anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Had Sharingan and Control Over All Girl. So let's start the series. Uzumaki Naruto yawned as he went about his daily routine, getting ready for another day of his life. He showered, put on his clothes, put on his mask, and left his apartment for the academy, where he would be spending his final day. Today was their graduation exam, and Naruto was going to pass this time. He had passed the first time because he had slept through the first one, and he had failed the second time because he had unintentionally depleted his chakra the day before, but this time he was ready. Despite everything they had done to him and taken away from him, he tried his best to ignore it all as he strolled through the hamlet, allowing the harsh glares and comments to fall off him. After surviving the village with only a few objects hurled at him and blocking them all before they could hurt him, he went to the academy, entered his classroom, and sat down. Before long, the room was crowded with all the other kids who wanted to be shinobi. Iruka and Hinata, his two favorite people in the entire village, finally entered the room. Iruka was kind to him occasionally and even offered to take him out to eat on rare occasions, while Hinata was also kind and never said anything harsh to him. In fact, she had a crush on him, which he found odd because none of them had ever seen his face. Naruto found Hinata's cautious conduct endearing and grinned. He wondered if she was bashful among people she liked or by herself, and if there was more to the shy Hyuga than first glances. Naruto listened to Iruka's speech about how proud he was of all of them, but he didn't pay any attention to it because he already knew the speech and was just waiting for the exams to be over. The Kyuubi had trained him diligently, forcing him to become extremely skilled at chakra control so that he could perform the Bunshin no Jutsu, and he usually just trained him into the ground every day without anyone knowing. It was funny to Naruto that the greatest most evil being to have ever walked the earth was the one who looked out for him the most. He knew it was for his own protection, but he also knew that the Kyuubi had grown somewhat attached to him, and he could sense it when they spoke. Kyuubi had insisted that he hold back in the academy because if he displayed skills that were far above average, people would undoubtedly think he was possessed by the demon and would try to do him more harm. With a calculating gaze, he observed as each pupil went into a separate room and then came back with a hitayite in hand or already affixed to a body part. When his name was finally called, he got up from his chair. The room fell silent, and nobody knew what to expect from him. His grades seemed to fluctuate depending on how he was feeling, going from the top of the class to the bottom of the list. Naruto moved quickly across the room, his mask covering his face and his usual black hood covering his head. He then closed the door to the separate room behind him, and a sense of suspense fell on the children's room. Naruto stood in front of Iruka and Mizuki, whom he had never liked and who usually threw a good deal of hate at him. Naruto was aware that he had witnessed several of his attacks. Iruka was beaming, "Good to see that you're actually able to participate this time, Naruto. I hope you're ready." "Damn straight I am, this is going to be cake," Naruto laughed. Iruka's grin broadened somewhat. "Well, I hope so, Naruto. First up is the Kawarimi no Jutsu. Please substitute yourself with anything in this room." Iruka gasped. "Naruto, how did you learn to do the Kawarimi without hand seals?" "Most jounin can't do that," as Naruto nodded and astonished them both by vanishing without using any hand seals and replacing himself with a chair. Naruto sighed. "Lots, and lots of practice. I've performed the Kawarimi and Henge Jutsus thousands upon thousands of times. I've just learned to mold the chakra without seals." "Alright, Henge next, please," into myself, Iruka said with a hesitant nod. After nodding once more, Naruto was momentarily hidden by a cloud of smoke before it dissipated, exposing an exact replica of Iruka, right down to the smallest detail. "Very, very good, Naruto." Last but not least, we have the Bunshin no Jutsu, if you'd be so kind as to create 2 or more Bunshins. Iruka was once again in awe of Naruto's performance. While many of the genin missed the slight 5 o'clock shadow he was sporting, Naruto had every detail he could see right. The room was crowded with clones of Naruto, crammed shoulder to shoulder. There must have been at least 150 of them. Naruto nodded and briefly closed his eye before creating the ram seal. "Wow!" he exclaimed, "that was fantastic, Naruto. I've never seen anyone make so many Bunshins, especially at such a young age. I'm proud to present you with the title of Genin of Konohagakure. Here is your Hittite." Iruka's jaw hung limply from his skull, which was far more than he had anticipated. He himself could only create about 70 Bunshin without depleting his chakra reserves. Naruto was the last person to take the test, so he bowed deeply and said, "Thank you, Iruka." After getting back up, he turned and left the room to rejoin his friends. Damn alphabetical order. With his Hittite in hand, Naruto crossed the classroom. Whispers went about among the young children before he sat at his desk and put the headband on top of it. Iruka occupied the middle of the room and gave a speech in which he explained that their careers were only getting started and that they still had a lot of work ahead of them. He then dismissed everyone, instructing them to return the following morning. After leaving the classroom, Naruto sat on the swing outside the structure and saw as the other children greeted their parents with kisses and hugs, congratulations, and tears of joy. He desired such treatment. However, he caught a glimpse of Hinata's back as she walked away from the group by herself. "Huh?" he asked. Why is she by herself? He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to approach her and talk to her. Since he had nothing better to do, he allowed his emotions to control him and pushed off the swing, crossing the schoolyard. It hurt that the parents separated from him and took their kids away. "Hey, why are you all alone? Shouldn't your parents be proud of you?" he questioned, lazily noticing that Hinata had fresh tears on her cheeks as he made his way through the crowd and strolled behind her. With unusually icy, tear-stained eyes, Hinata turned to face him and said, "My father doesn't know the word pride. So, he doesn't care how well you perform." Naruto hummed. Naruto was shocked to see how different Hinata was from the quiet, contemplative girl he had always assumed she was. "Oh no, he cares, nothing is good enough for him, as long as it's me doing it, nothing's enough," by her cruel laughter. Naruto gave a nod. "Sounds like you need to tell him to go to hell, you do your best, and no one else's." "Why do you wear that hood and mask, Naruto?" Hinata asked abruptly after laughing as though to say, "If only." "Why else?" "I have something to hide," Naruto groaned as he gazed up at the clear blue sky above them. "Would you take it off, even for just a minute?" Hinata questioned, giving a small nod. "Why?" Naruto asked as his head suddenly jerked toward her. But Naruto wasn't everyone. Hinata sighed and whispered, "Well, you're the strongest person I've ever met, emotionally and otherwise, and all I know is a mask. I have no face to put with that name. I just wanted to know what you looked like. I bet you're handsome." The words, "You think I would be hiding anything if I was the catch of the town? No, I'm just your everyday horror story," were laced with agony as he laughed. "Please. Could you at least let me decide on my own if you're as hideous as you claim?" "I swear on my life that I won't tell anyone," Hinata said, shaking her head, for there was no way that voice could be that of someone repulsive. After he sighed and went to check on her, Naruto was coerced into removing his mask. "I don't know why I'm about to do this," he murmured, raising one hand to his hood and the other to his mask. Hinata gasped as his entire head was exposed to her, first revealing his brilliant golden blonde hair that glowed in every direction, followed by his bright blue sapphire eye and the adorable whisker marks on his cheek. He looked around to make sure no one was nearby and pulled his hood down while also taking off his mask. Then she saw the other side of his face, which was why he wore the hood and mask. His right eye was seared shut, the entire right side of his face was covered in scarred skin, the whisker marks were invisible and extended past his ear, and he was missing some of his hair from the right side of his head and face. Hinata gently reached out and caressed the damaged flesh, causing a tear to fall down her cheek. What happened to you?" she mumbled. Sadly, Naruto chuckled. "Life happened. You're all aware that most of the village doesn't like me, now you know to what extent the villagers did this to you." Hinata cried in a low voice, her eyes widening as she understood the essence of what he had spoken. Hinata saw the agony in Naruto's eye as he smiled, saying, "No, Shinobi did this, villagers just do everything else." The startled Hinata exclaimed, "Shinobi did this to you? Why?" Naruto breathed deeply. "It's funny, because you're the first person I've ever actually wanted to tell, and I'm not permitted to." "Why is it a secret? And such a high-level one at that?" Hinata asked, bewildered. With a slight smile, Naruto glanced at her worried face and said, "I can't tell you, all I can say is why the village dislikes me so. I'll find it out myself then you'll have to answer my questions," Hinata said, nodding and squinting at him. "When that day comes, I will answer them," Naruto said, nodding as he put on his mask and hood again, "assuming you're not too scared of me." He concluded melancholy in his head. "I don't care who sees me with you," she thought to herself as he left her after glancing around and realizing they were still alone for the time being. He nodded and said, "Right, well I suppose I'll see you tomorrow. I better get out of here before I get you in trouble for being near me, Giant." With a sigh, Hinata went home to the Hyuga complex, where she had a lot of new material to process, such as what might cause the community to despise a pretty innocuous youngster. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX just let loose on himself. Hinata would now be actively attempting to learn his secret. He couldn't image her or anyone else handling the news well. He certainly didn't when he first learned about his furry buddy. He gazed at his mirror as a henge took effect, and all of his scars vanished, leaving him looking completely normal. He groaned and touched his blonde hair. "What I wouldn't give to be normal again," he muttered regretfully. Well, some fraction of normalcy could be returned, Kyubi thought as he prepared for the expected questioning. "Huh, what do you mean?" Naruto said, his blue eyes widening, not caring if he spoke out loud in his own home. Kyubi gave a dramatic sigh. "You're well aware of my powers and what I can do. While I can't remove scars, I could repair your eye more or less." "What?" said Naruto. "I thought you couldn't regenerate lost body parts." Kyubi nodded. "This is true, but I can heal existing ones, so if you can obtain a new eye, I can work it to work with your body. I could even do more than that." The question, more. Like what? What could you improve about it? "I had perfect vision," prompted Naruto to raise an eyebrow. "I could forge the Sharingan into the eye," Kyubi said with a deep laugh, as though he found the whole situation too funny. When Naruto searched for information about the furball, he discovered that the Kyubi was the original source of the Sharingan. "But how?" he begged. "I gave the first Uchiha their Sharingan, now I will simply give this new eye it as well," Kyubi said, shaking his head at Naruto's simplicity. Naruto was astonished to learn that he had not only recovered his sight but also acquired what was possibly the second strongest Jujutsu ever. Naruto questioned, but where do I get an eye from? The youngster was, to be honest, too dim at times. Where else? Kill someone and take their eye, Kyubi moaned. In a fit of rage, Naruto screamed, I could never kill someone for something like that. Then you will have to wait until you happen across a fresh corpse with intact eyes, maybe you'll be lucky enough to get one from a shinobi on a mission, Kyubi said with another disappointed sigh. Naruto gave a nod, then we will have to wait for that day, because I'm not killing anyone anytime soon. Very well, I'm going back to sleep, wake me for anything interesting, Kyubi said with a defeated nod and yawn. Naruto nodded and saw that his henge had failed due to his acute lack of focus. He frowned at his reflection before changing his mask and hood because he felt he had no reason to conceal his positive traits. Hinata helped him see that. On his way to the academy the following morning, he attracted a lot of attention. His hood had been altered so that half of it was removed, and his golden blonde hair was bouncing in the intense sunlight with each step. His mask had been split in two, exposing the good side of his face to the sun. He struggled to contain his laughter at the villagers' staring looks, but he was able to control it to a cheery smile. He deliberately arrived at the academy last in order to leave a lasting impression and avoid having to interact with everyone as they entered. As he boldly entered the classroom, all conversation abruptly stopped as everyone turned to face him and saw what the rest of the town had seen. Gasps echoed through the room. With his bright blonde hair that stood in all directions, adorable whisker markings, a bright smile, and eyes as deep and blue as the ocean, Naruto was clearly a looker, as all the girls in the room could see. Naruto! Why are you still wearing half of your mask? Why not just take it off completely? Ino said as she abruptly got to her feet. Because, that would kill my mysterious aura, I just wanted to make it all the more mysterious for you, Naruto said, laughing as his eye darted around the room to gauge everyone's reaction. He was correct, everyone was now even more interested in him, asking questions like, does he wear the mask for nothing, to, I wonder what he has to conceal beneath the remnants of the mask. Even Iruka, who was very meticulous about that kind of thing and had never seen the boy behind the mask, was in awe. Well, it's very nice to finally know what you look like, Naruto. Please take your seat though, we do have things to accomplish this morning, Iruka said. After nodding, Naruto took an open seat and waited for Iruka to continue. When he did, he reiterated his pride in them and said that the real test of their abilities and determination would now take place. He said that they would be divided into three-person teams, each with a jounin as their sensei, and he then started reading off teams. When Naruto learned who his partners were, he was thrilled. Sasuke, who was shy and a little conceited, was a skilled fighter, but more importantly, he was Hinata. Hinata was on his side. He was thrilled that she was spending more time with him, but he didn't know why. You could have at least been on time for our first day, make a good impression, Naruto moaned as Kakashi, the squad's chosen sensei, finally arrived 2 hours after the team was created. He was another individual who had never seen the child below. Meet me on the roof in 3 minutes, before he vanished in a puff of smoke, and Kakashi was horrified to discover that half of Naruto's mask was gone. After yawning, Naruto got up from his chair and said, well, let's go, indicating to Hinata. She agreed, and the two departed, Sasuke pursuing them. In a few seconds, everyone were on the roof and seated in front of Kakashi, who appeared to be quite bored. All right, why don't you introduce yourselves? My name is Hatake Kakashi, and I have a few hobbies and a lot of things that I like and dislike. Naruto gasped, how enlightening. My name's Uzumaki Naruto. I like training, I suppose, and two people who are nice to me. I dislike a good amount of things. I don't bother to keep track. I don't really have any hobbies, no real dreams either. After nodding, Kakashi gestured to Hinata and asked, how about you? My name is Hyuga Hinata, and I enjoy drinking tea and relaxing in hot springs. I also have a lot of dislikes, but I like to draw, so I guess that's a hobby. Kakashi furrowed his eyebrows, saying, no dreams? Hinata glanced slightly in Naruto's direction and flushed a little. Well, maybe, she said. This could be interesting, Kakashi replied with a small smile. Okay, you're up, he continued, gesturing to Sasuke. When he said, my names are Uchiha Sasuke, I don't like much, and I hate a lot, I like to train, and I won't rest until a certain man is dead and my clan is revived. Sasuke appeared to be the king of the world. Oh, he'll be a pleasure, Kakashi groaned. Alright, don't eat breakfast because we have our first mission. Meet me at Training Ground 7 tomorrow at 8 a.m. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX year and a half went by too slowly for the squad of rookie genins. Sarutobi-sama, these missions are beneath us and are an insult to our skills and our pride as shinobi of this village. We're supposed to be sworn protectors of the village, taking difficult missions that others cannot, or would not risk, yet for the past month all we've been doing are mediocre chores that a 5-year-old could accomplish. I refuse to do another D rank today, Naruto replied. He was half anticipating a juvenile outcry and demands for more excitement, so the Sandaime Hokage was taken aback by Naruto's reasoning. So be it, I just received a C rank mission that should be perfect for you four. Tazuna, would you please come in? He called. These brats are supposed to protect me, the man said, glancing at Kakashi's mask before turning to face Naruto, who said, "What the hell, what's with the masks? It's not Halloween." A moment later, Sarutobi's office doors swung open and he entered the room wearing somewhat shabby clothes and a bottle of sake. Naruto looked at the drunk with a scowl. Despite what you may believe, we are all highly trained professional shinobi of Konoha. This mission will not be difficult in the slightest, and even if there is trouble, Kakashi is a jounin of the best caliber. You'll be fine. Despite his complaints, Tazunza nodded and said, "I'll be at the gate. You better not keep me waiting." He turned to leave the room, taking his alcoholic odor with him. "All right, quickly grab the necessities and meet at the gates in 10 minutes, Kakashi said, nodding to his crew. After nodding, the three teenagers hurried out of the office to get ready. Naruto arrived at the village gates first, and in less than 3 minutes, all of his belongings were packed at his house, as they always were. He was unsure if he would have to spend the night on the streets again if someone threw another Molotov cocktail through his window or damaged his house. When Tazuna examined Naruto's mask attentively, he couldn't see any eye holes or anything like that. "How the hell do you see out of that thing? Doesn't it make it hard to see?" he asked. With a laugh, Naruto said, "The mask doesn't hinder my vision in the slightest, but the scars behind it do." "Thanks for the consideration though," he concluded mentally. They were all prepared in no time and set out on a journey to Tazuna's native Nami no Kuni, where they were to guard him until he completed building a bridge. A few hours into their journey, they crossed a sizable pond, but Naruto ignored it until two Kiri-Nukenin emerged from it and tore Kakashi to pieces with a sharp, jagged chain. Naruto couldn't blame Hinata for screaming as Kakashi's blood flew in all directions, especially because it was her first time seeing so much blood. In fact, even Sasuke was somewhat disturbed by the destruction of their sensei. The second shinobi then charged at Hinata and Tsunami, threatening to tear them both to pieces if Kakashi didn't show up, but Naruto sprang into action and kicked one of the cloaked shinobi in the ribs, doubling him over before snapping his head back into blissful unconsciousness with a kick to the jaw, knocking him out with a vicious grapple around the neck. Naruto's unconscious opponent was picked up by Kakashi, who nodded, "Good work, Naruto." He then turned to face Sasuke and Hinata, saying, "Good job protecting Tsunami. Hinata, Sasuke, good job staying prepared for any other threats. If you don't mind, I'm going to question these two and then send them to Konoha to be dealt with." Kyuubi cursed Naruto, "You could have easily killed him, then you'd have gotten his eye. But no, now he's just going to die in Konoha where he's worthless." "Oh well," Naruto murmured, "it's not the end of the world, there will be more opportunities to get an eye in the future." "Well, Tsunami, it would seem you have some explaining to do, as they admitted that they were hired to kill you, but they would not say who hired them." "This is already more than enough reason to drop our contract, so spill it," said Kakashi, who had returned a few minutes earlier without the shinobi. Tsunami sighed, "Fine, you're right, I deceived you, it's stupid and wrong I know, but I had no choice. The man who sent those shinobi after me, his name's Gato, he's an incredibly rich business owner, but what they don't tell you is that he's a tyrannical drug dealer and slave trader who takes over towns and uses them until they shrivel up and die. Last year he came to Nami no Kuni and took over. My bridge is the only hope we have of removing him, so I'm his biggest threat. We couldn't afford anything more than a C-rank mission, even after draining our reserves. I'm sorry for lying, just please don't leave or all of Nami no Kuni is doomed." With a sigh, Kakashi turned to face his group of genin and said, "Well, I'll let you guys handle it. This is more than we were asked to do or were compensated for, and we're going to face more formidable opponents in the future." As the three strongest children in the academy, Naruto glanced back and forth at Sasuke and Hinata. If they couldn't handle it, then who could? Hinata and Sasuke both nodded in agreement, and Kakashi grinned. "I think we should continue, these people need our help, only a coward would refuse a plea for help," he said. The three genin nodded, and the five-person group proceeded in the direction of Nami no Kuni. "Very well, we will continue onwards, let's continue. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX later on the trek. After a fierce battle, Kakashi was captured in a water prison by Zabuza. Naruto and Sasuke worked together to get him to release Kakashi, who then used his Sharingan to defeat him. They were declared the winners when a masked shinobi appeared and took Zabuza away, posing as a Chunin, but Kakashi saw through it and knew Zabuza was still alive. After the threat had passed, Kakashi passed out from weariness from his valiant battle and was taken by Naruto to Tsuna's house, which was roughly 2 kilometers away. "So, you guys are all here to protect my father?" Tsuna asked them as they were enjoying the delectable feast that her lovely daughter Tsunami had made. The following morning, they were all up for a late breakfast, and Kakashi was thankfully awake, if weak. "That and to guard the bridge while he finishes it," Kakashi said with a nod. "Don't forget Gato, still have to kick his sorry ass for what he's done to Nami," Naruto said with a chuckle. Tsunami's kid, who had been unusually silent up until this point, looked up from his meal and remarked gravely, "You'll die, just like everyone else." "Good thing we're shinobi and not everyone else," Naruto laughed. "You think that matters? Gato has hundreds of soldiers, trained mercenaries. You'll be cut down just like this town. You don't know the suffering he's put us through, you just hide behind a mask, you don't know what true pain is," the young boy screamed, slamming his chopsticks on the table in rage. In one of his incredibly rare outbursts, Naruto lost it. "Pain. Suffering," he exclaimed, reaching up and ripping his mask and hood off before smashing it onto the table and shattering it. Everyone in the room gasped at what was underneath his mask, including Hinata, because it was simply too upsetting not to be. "All I know is pain and suffering. My entire village despises my very existence and routinely tries to kill me." Naruto squinted at the young child seated across from him. "You think mercenaries are bad? Try having trained shinobi come after you. You can't outrun them, you can't outmaneuver them, they take their time torturing you, and don't think your young age will save you. This was done to me when I was 5, he shot. He glared down at his broken mask and swore before storming out of the house. "Even with all the shit that happens in my life, I still stay happy, you know why? Because, even if it's fake, it's better than nothing," he said. "I've never had anyone who cared for me, I've never had parents, siblings, or anything." With horrified eyes, Tsunami asked Kakashi, "How could your village do that to such a young child?" Kakashi breathed deeply. "Not everyone in Konoha hates him, just most of them. I never even knew he had those burns." Hinata asked, "Kakashi-sensei, should we go get him?" with a hint of concern. "No, give him time, he'll return when he's ready," said Kakashi, shaking his head. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX so angry, angry that he had broken his soul mask, and angry that Naruto was beating the living daylights out of the forest. With his rage, Naruto worked himself into exhaustion, breaking numerous trees and working until he collapsed in a clearing he wandered into while dazed. The following morning, when Naruto was still sleeping in his clearing, a very feminine-looking boy in a pink kimono entered the clearing with a basket filled with plants and herbs. He saw Naruto in his prone position, recognized his clothing and blonde hair right away, and approached him. He was able to view over his shoulder and the opposite side of Naruto's face, the scarred flesh, and his seared eye as he approached his body. The sight was so startling and unsettling that the child gasped, which made Naruto stir. "Something I can help you with?" Naruto inquired groggily, shaking his head slightly before finally opening his eye and focusing on his pink-clad intruder. "Sorry, it's not often I find people sleeping out in the woods," the youngster said, slowly shaking his head. After a few minutes of scanning his surroundings, Naruto laughed and said, "Hey, I guess I passed out after last night." "Those scars, what happened to you?" "I've never seen such brutal scars," the youngster said, unable to take his eyes off Naruto's melting skin, even though he knew it was extremely disrespectful to stare at something like that. "Back in my village, I'm hated by everyone, to the point that they routinely try to rid the world of my existence. This was another of their attempts," Naruto said, laughing lightly, but the boy could see the pain and hurt flash through his eye like any other skilled shinobi. "Your village hates you." "Why?" the child said as he fell backward and caught himself on his palms. Naruto laughed. "Sorry, I can't tell you. One, it's an S-rank secret of my village, and second, you're the enemy." He tried to appear perplexed as the guy's eyes widened in shock. "Huh? Why would you say such a thing?" he asked. A small grin appeared on Naruto's face. "Chakra signatures. I may be a genin by technicality, but I'm quite good. Your chakra signature is the same as that Chunin that scooped Zabuza out at the last second, plus I doubt any civilians would have as much chakra as you, if they somehow managed to unlock their chakra that is. My question is, why didn't you try to kill me right from the start? We're enemies. The kid breathed deeply. I don't like to kill, plus I was curious as to what happened to your own mask. What are the odds of two shinobi who are enemies meeting and neither wants to kill? Asked Naruto with a hearty grin. You don't like to kill either. What's your reason? The guys said, their eyes widening once more. Naruto sighed. I don't really have a reason, I just don't want to be some heartless killing machine. Once someone dies it's over for them, there is no going back, no do-overs, it's done and over and you rot in the ground. I prefer everyone get the longest shot on this earth as they can. I would only kill someone who was truly a tyrant to this world or the safety of my village or teammates. I'm sorry to say that if I have to, I will kill Zabuza if he becomes a danger to my teammate. So, what's your reason for hating killing? The child murmured, I was forced to kill at a very young age. My father killed my mother when he discovered she had a Kikei Genkai, then tried to kill me, and I killed him in defense. The feeling of taking someone's life, it's horrible, but Zabuza-sama saved me, gave me a purpose, and I will kill if he asks me to. I would prefer not to, but I will kill your team if I have to as well. Naruto looked saddened. Looks as if we're two allies stuck on the wrong side of an uncrossable fence. My name's Naruto by the way, Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you, Naruto. My name is Haku, the boy said with a smile. Naruto nodded and grabbed a hand. Well, I should be heading back to my team. I've been gone for a while and they're probably worried. Let's hope neither of us has to kill the other, okay? Okay, see you around then, Naruto, Haku said, grabbing his outstretched hand and shaking it. See you later, was the last thing Naruto said as he turned his head and began to walk toward Tsuna's house after nodding. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX the kitchen tidying up after what appeared to be breakfast. She cringed at the sight of his scarred face, wondering if she would ever grow accustomed to it. "Morning Naruto, good to see you're back, can I help you with anything?" she said. Naruto gave a nod. "Actually, do you know where my team is? I figured I should talk to them." Tsunami grinned and nodded. "Yeah, sure, they headed east out into the forest to do some kind of training or something, they shouldn't be too far out." After grinning back and bowing his head slightly, Naruto said, "Thanks Tsunami-san." He then swiftly turned around and left the forest without picking anything to eat. After approximately 15 minutes of walking, he finally came across his team, and sure enough, they were practicing in the woods. Sasuke was gazing at a tree with around 9 slash marks in the bark at different heights, while Hinata was sitting up 50 feet in a tree on a wide branch. "Ah, Naruto, good to see you didn't disappear forever on us, are you alright?" Kakashi yelled at him as soon as he saw Naruto arrive. Quickly nodded, "Yeah, I'm fine, just needed to blow off some steam and have some time alone, I'm fine now." Under his mask, Kakashi smirked, "Good, because you've got some catching up to do. Sasuke and Hinata have already been training for about 15 minutes, they've both got head starts on you, and Hinata has already seemed to perfect this." Naruto assumed that they were practicing chakra control exercises based on the markings Sasuke had left and the position of Hinata's seat, but he thought he would make fun of Kakashi by asking, "So, what are you guys doing?" "You're climbing trees," without your hands, seemed to make Kakashi smile beneath his mask. To Kakashi's dismay, Naruto nodded emotionlessly. "Ah, I figured as much, I'm going to do my own thing, okay? I already know how to climb trees with chakra," Kakashi said. The query, "Really now?" When did you learn how to do it? Caused Kakashi to raise an eyebrow. I learned to climb trees with my chakra the same day I unlocked my chakra, 1 month after my 5th birthday, Naruto said, glancing sideways for a while before nodding. Kakashi's gaze widened. You unlocked your chakra when you were 5? That's unheard of. The earliest case I've ever heard of someone unlocking their chakra was the Yondaime and Uchiha Itachi. They both unlocked their chakra just after they turned 7-inch. Naruto laughed, guess I'm better than the 2 best shinobi Konoha has ever produced then. Anyway, like I said, can I go do my own thing then? I already know how to climb trees. Kakashi nodded. Negative, seeing as you already know tree climbing, and Hinata mastered it so easily, I'm going to get you guys started on water walking now. His grin widened. I already know water walking as well, Kakashi. I've been doing chakra control for 9 years, I've mastered all the methods of training I've found, and have created my own. With his drooping mask as proof, Kakashi's mouth fell out as he said, you created your own chakra control training methods? Nodded. Yeah, though mine are a bit different from standard ways, mine are specifically tailored to help me control my unnaturally high chakra reserves, which are incredibly hard to control. Rather than just trying to control my chakra to a tiny point, I work on controlling it perfectly on the large scale. My chakra just can't be moved in tiny amounts. Alright, then, I give you permission to do your own training exercises. Kakashi grinned at his charge, Naruto, who was redefining the word diligent. Thanks Kakashi, I guess I'll see you guys later then, Jana, Naruto said with a sly smile and a nod before briskly pacing toward his own secluded area of the forest. He sat down in a small clearing and crossed his legs once he had moved a few miles away, where his chakra would not be detected. He concentrated on it, and a moment later it started to flow out of him, enveloping him in a raging fire of ethereal blue flames. After a moment of adjusting the levels, Naruto was indeed hovering about 12 inches above the ground on a cushion of his own chakra, almost like a significantly enhanced form of water walking. He grinned at the warmth his chakra gave out and directed it towards his legs and butt. He started working on the other aspects of this technique after he had stabilized himself. By moving his chakra and changing its levels beneath him, he was able to move above the earth without ever contacting it or causing even the slightest amount of friction to be applied to his body. He worked on the technique all day long. He had been working on it for a while, but it was still a ways off from being fully functional. His final result was the ability to move without moving, in total silence, and to form a film of chakra over his entire body, which would eliminate all friction, even against the wind. He worked on the technique all week long, and by the end of the week, he had actually made some significant progress. He overslept on the last night since he made the bad choice to sleep outside in the woods at his training location. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX dissipated. Damn, they probably already ate breakfast, he thought. He hurried back to Tsuna's house because they were meant to visit the bridge today to see how things were going. He heard what sounded like a tussle and a Tsunami cry as he got closer to Tsuna's house. Tsunami was fighting against two men, both of whom were carrying katanas, when he cautiously made his way to the house's back door. Tsunami's young son was in front of them, urging them to release her, but they simply laughed at him. "No, we won't let her go, but you can have her body back when we're done having fun with her," the larger of the two said, smiling sickly. If there was one thing Naruto detested more than the person who had harmed him, it was someone who would hurt a woman. His eyes narrowed in disdain. It goes without saying that the man wasn't waking up for a time after he came in a blur and violently smashed the smaller man's face into the house's wall, cracking the board. When the bigger of the two turned around to see Naruto, he was holding Tsunami by the throat with his katana. He stared down at his partner's bloodied and crushed face and sneered at Naruto, saying, "Move and I'll kill her, freak." The big swordsman was momentarily blinded by Naruto's chakra exploding out of him in a bright blue flash. In that moment, Naruto moved in another blur, grabbing his sword's blade and ripping it back away from Tsunami's throat, knocking her to the ground out of danger. He then swept the confused man's feet out from under him and cracked his head on a large stone on the ground, knocking him out with a fleshy thud. "Sorry about that, Tsunami-san, I had to get you away from him," Naruto said, turning to face Tsunami and scowling momentarily. Tsunami raised her eyebrows. "You have nothing to be sorry about, thank you for saving me, please, let me take a look at that cut." "No need, it's nothing serious, but thank you for the offer. If these two attacked you here, there's no doubt that there will be more of them attacking my team down at the bridge. I need to go now," Naruto said, shaking his head and flicking his hand to reveal the blood dripping off his fingers almost in a stream from the deep gash. With his back to Tsunami, Naruto swiftly turned around and leaped toward the bridge. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX engaged in combat with Zabuza and had a deep gash in his chest, but he appeared certain that he would prevail. Sasuke was surrounded by a dome of ice mirrors and engaged in combat with Haku, who was not doing too badly but was moving south. Hinata was in good health, protecting Tsunami from any unexpected attacks or similar situations. He moaned as he fled for the dome of ice mirrors to save Sasuke when life once again worked against him. When Naruto turned to face Sasuke after diving under the ice dome, he was shocked to see the first stage of the Sharingan burning in his eyes. "Sasuke, take a break, I'll take care of it from here, you're exhausted," Naruto said. Before he could protest, Sasuke's body accepted Naruto's offer, and he fainted. "Irony is a bitch, isn't it, Haku?" Naruto groaned as he turned back to face the mirrors. "Yes, I'm sorry, Naruto, but if you don't step down, I will have to kill you," as Zabuza-sama has requested. The image of Haku in the mirrors nodded. "Sorry, I can't stand down and let you kill Tsunami. It's my mission to protect him," Naruto said with a sorrowful shake of his head. Naruto felt several senbon stab him in the back as the image of Haku nodded but said nothing. He swiftly turned around to counter, only to be struck in the chest by another volley. "Damn, you're too fast to track," he grumbled as blood began to trickle into his torn black jacket. Then, 3 additional groups of senbon struck him from seemingly different directions at the same time. "I'm sorry for resorting to this, I would have liked to defeat you on my own," Naruto said, shaking his head pitifully as he realized he had no chance of capturing Haku at this time. "Kyubi, your chakra please." Kyubi gave the blonde a nod and released a small amount of his chakra. When Naruto's powers suddenly surged, red chakra erupted from him and started to swirl around like a typhoon of power, tearing into the ground with its ferocity. Naruto hunched over a little and started to change physically. His hair stood out straight and turned more feral, his fingers turned into strong claws with razor-sharp nails, his eye narrowed and his face took on a feral appearance, his whiskers thickened and darkened, his canines grew out into full fangular teeth, and his eye turned into a burning crimson color with a slit pupil. As Haku watched all of the senbon he tossed slowly fall to the ground as Naruto's wounds closed with a visible steam and an audible hissing, he was instantly afraid, much as he had been when his father had come at him with a butcher knife to kill him for being his mother's son. With a sudden burst of speed Haku never imagined possible, Naruto vanished as he glanced up at the mirrors, and half of the mirrors in his dome smashed into useless ice shards. He jumped out of his mirror and fired a forceful fist at Haku's face before diving at Naruto with a kunai in hand. This was a desperate action in and of itself, but Naruto dodged aside and grabbed Haku's arm with an unbelievably strong grasp, pulling him forward. At that same moment, Kakashi had trapped Zabuza in a trap and was approaching him with his Raikiri fully blazing and ready to kill. Haku flew back from the force of the blow, smashed through one of his own mirrors, and tumbled along the concrete bridge for roughly 10 feet before stopping and slowly getting to his feet. When Haku saw his master was in danger, he bowed slightly to Naruto and said, "I'm sorry, Naruto. Our match must end early." He then vanished in a cloud of smoke, leaving Naruto perplexed, that is, until he turned to see what had transpired with Kakashi and Zabuza. The Raikiri ripped through his chest like a knife through butter, splattering blood across Zabuza and Kakashi as he turned to face them. He saw Kakashi throw his fist forward, which was engulfed in blue lightning, but just as it was about to hit Zabuza, Haku appeared in a plume of smoke. "I failed you, Zab," Haku scowled as he coughed up a lot of blood and what appeared to be a piece of lung. His brown eyes turned cold before he could finish, and his head fell forward lifelessly. Evidently unconcerned for his apprentice, Zabuza abruptly broke free from the dogs holding him and swung his enormous sword vertically down at Kakashi, intending to cut him down along with his apprentice's body. Fortunately, Kakashi moved quickly enough to keep himself and Haku safe, and a second later he disabled both of Zabuza's arms, completely rendering him useless. Naruto let the Kyuubi's chakra to drain from him before picking up Haku's broken mask from the ground, which broke in two as he did so. He then proceeded to the location where Haku's body was lying and Kakashi was holding Zabuza. He turned to Zabuza and narrowed his gaze. "You're despicable, you know, he followed you in life, no matter what you told him to do, and gave his life to save yours, and you just as quickly throw his body to the curb like he never meant a thing to you. His statement that, he was nothing more than my tool, and I am nothing more than his master, his death has no meaning to me, was mocked by Zabuza." Naruto nodded. "You're wrong, you were much more than a master to him, you were a mentor, a savior, you were the light in his world, and he was the light in yours. You threw Haku to the side, like so much garbage once he was useless, you're no demon, you're just scum," Naruto said, noticing a tiny sparkle in Zabuza's eyes as his long-suppressed feelings finally surfaced. Before the discussion could proceed, Gato's grating chuckle echoed across the bridge. Zabuza shook his head, and Naruto really saw a tear escape from his eye. "Be quiet, your words cut deep, deeper than any blade, you're right dash. Zabuza, you useless piece of garbage. You couldn't even deal with a bunch of brats, it's a shame that brat kid died, I was looking forward to making him beg for death, at least I get to kill you, demon my ass. So, after you're done with all of us, you're gonna move on to Nami, right?" Naruto asked, turning his head to face Gato and the 200 mercenaries who were positioned behind him, all of them were armed. Gato laughed sheepishly, "Precisely. The people of this land are useless, I only need their harbor, not their people, they've become a liability." "Well, I can't let that happen, you'll have to be stopped," Naruto said with a grave nod. "What, you think you can kill all of us?" "You little shit," Gato said, laughing once again. After making sure Hinata was out of earshot, Naruto shook his head and said, "No, I won't kill any of you, I don't like to kill, but I'm not against death." Zabuza earned his title of Demon of the Mist, I on the other hand, was branded with the name Demon, and unlike Zabuza, I really am a demon. Kyuubi, kill them all for me, but don't harm my buddies, Naruto said, lowering his head and concealing his blue eye. Kyuubi took control of Naruto and nodded, ready for a small amount of independence. When Kyuubi lifted Naruto's head, his blue eye changed to his own crimson one, and the evil chakra burst forth from him once more, this time with greater force than when Naruto had used it previously. It enveloped him in a red aura that obscured him from view and gave him the appearance of a fox with two long chakra tails. Zabuza couldn't help but remark, "What in the hell is that kid?" as Kakashi and Zabuza watched in amazement as Naruto changed and the Kyuubi gained over. All I can say is that Naruto is, as he stated, a true devil. Kakashi groaned. As he watched the Kyuubi-controlled Naruto approach the crowd of hundreds of armed men without a weapon, Zabuza's eyes widened. "And people say I'm crazy," he said. An arm of pure chakra shot off Kyuubi's arm as he raised it, tearing through a group of men like nothing, tearing them limb by limb and splattering blood all over the other men on the bridge as several of them ran Naruto through with polearms and swords. With a cruel smile on his face, Kyuubi ripped them all to bits, sending body parts flying and littering the bridge with blood and organs as the blood-curdling screams erupted. Eventually, only Gato remained. He cowered at the end of the bridge, as far away from the Kyuubi as he could, and trembled in terror. Kyuubi approached him and grinned, leaned in, and whispered to Gato, "I am the Kyuubi," then used one chakra-shrouded hand to cleave the man from skull to groin, knocking the two spliced sides of his body over the bridge's edge and into the water below. It ended as swiftly as it had begun, and Kyuubi gave Naruto back control. Though he wasn't aware of it at the time, Naruto was growing more and more used to death and murder as he gazed around at the destruction Kyuubi had wrought and nodded in satisfaction that they were dead. When Naruto returned to his group, he observed absently that Sasuke was still unconscious from his battle with Haku, and he had to laugh. "So, Zabuza, Gato's dead, your mission is over, Haku is dead, your arms are incapacitated, what's your plan of action now?" asked Naruto, glancing at Zabuza, who was still staring at him incredulously. "Leave me, I'll think of something to do with my life eventually. It's ironic that I didn't know how lonely life was until Haku died, just give him a proper burial since I can't, please," Zabuza said, crying as he gazed at Haku's lifeless body. "Alright, we can do that for you, no problem," said Kakashi, who only nodded when Naruto turned to face him. Naruto then picked up Haku's body and said, "Kakashi, I'm going to bury Haku, I'll meet you guys back at the house, okay?" Still in shock over what had happened, Kakashi turned to face the unconscious Sasuke and replied, "Yeah, okay, see you there." Looking at Zabuza, Naruto nodded and said, "Good luck, Zabuza. Perhaps we'll cross paths again someday." With a sorrowful laugh, Zabuza said, "Yeah, maybe kid, thanks." With a sorrowful grin, Naruto left with Haku's body because there was still work to be done. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Haku's body to a remote spot and placing it on the soggy grass. As if I knew anything about medicine. Don't worry about anything, just let me take over for a while and I'll do everything. I don't need you to mess things up, Kyubi laughed. Naruto gave up power to the demon and nodded before fading into oblivion. Since time was of the essence, Kyubi immediately set about removing Haku's right eye and implanting it in Naruto. After an hour, Kyubi completed his task and returned Naruto's body to its rightful owner. After 9 years of being partially blind, Naruto forgot how nice it felt to have depth perception as he glanced around. It would take some time to adjust to having two eyes again. He once more took up Haku's body, dug a grave for him beneath a tree on a hill, and buried him there. All that was left of the tomb was a cross that read, Haku. If someone knew more, they may be motivated to dig up the body in search of secrets or grave robbers. Thanking Haku for restoring his sight, Naruto expressed his hope that he wouldn't have to die for it but that he would always be a part of Naruto. Naruto hurried back to Tsuna's house to meet up with his squad after discovering Haku's burial. He arrived rather quickly and entered the kitchen, but there was nobody there. He then went further inside the house and discovered Tsuna, Tsunami, Hinata, and Kakashi. It appeared that Sasuke was still unconscious, but he had just unlocked his Kikei Genkai, so he was likely exhausted. Hinata was bandaging the gash in Kakashi's chest, and none of them noticed his entrance until Tsunami turned to face him and noticed that he now had a light brown eye in his once useless right eye socket. "Naruto, I thought you were blind in your right eye, and it's a different color," she gasped, of course, and that got everyone's attention. When Kakashi and Hinata turned around, they discovered that Tsunami was telling the truth and that Naruto was now looking around with both a light brown eye and a deep blue sapphire eye. "Naruto, did you do what I think you did?" Kakashi asked sternly. Nodded. "Yes, I did. I wanted to have my full eyesight back, and I know Haku would have given me his eye were he able to. I didn't tell you guys this, but I met Haku the morning after I stormed off into the woods. He was actually a very nice guy. I wish he didn't die." As he finished, Kakashi put his hand over his headband and sighed. Withholding that information could have been detrimental to the mission. Also, how did you perform the procedure to correctly attach his eye? It's a complicated medical procedure that's difficult even for experts, I would know. Why in the world would Kakashi pose that question in front of Hinata? Naruto blinked at him. "Well, I've been missing an eye for many years now, so naturally I researched everything I could about it and even perfected the procedure so that I could perform it on myself one day." As he loathed that beast, Kakashi nodded his head slowly, saying, "Right, well, don't get too comfortable. Now that the mission is over, once everyone's injuries are healed, we're going to be on our way back to Konoha. This mission needs to be reported to Lord Hokage still." He also acknowledged that it wasn't impossible for someone to learn the technique, especially if they studied and practiced it for years. Nodded. "Alright, do you mind if I go out and train then? I assume you won't be able to travel until at least the day after tomorrow. That wound is serious." Kakashi nodded. "Fine, just don't wear yourself out. We do have a decent amount of traveling ahead of us." "Don't worry, I won't wear myself out," Naruto said with a sly smile as he headed toward the door. Once more, Naruto ventured into the woods and discovered a remote location several miles from the house. He sat down in the refreshing grass and called the Kyuubi, saying, "So, I guess you gave the eye the Sharingan." "Of course I did," Kyuubi laughed, "because the longer you live, the longer I live, and I never plan on dying, even if it means living a somewhat confined life." Naruto shrugged and said, "Well, fair enough. Would you mind teaching me everything there is to know about the Sharingan?" He would also rather live than die. "If I can't utilize it at all, it won't be very helpful." "Very well," Kyuubi said, nodding his consent. "First of all, you must remember that the Sharingan you will be using is not at all like the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. Yes, I gave them power, but I really gave them the Sharingan because it was funny to watch them destroy themselves for power. To obtain the Manjikyu Sharingan, they had to kill their best friend, and if they didn't steal their brother's eyes, they would gradually go blind after that. I've already given you the full Manjikyu Sharingan, but there is another higher level of it that only you can use. If you use my Yukai, your Sharingan will transform into an even higher form called the Waikyoku Sharingan, which takes the Sharingan's powers and elevates them to their highest level. It was invaluable to watch them go after their friends and family. As I mentioned before, yours is nothing like theirs, so there would be no point in making you do all that since you have family. After struggling to comprehend what the Kyuubi had just thrown at him, Naruto managed to grasp it all quite well after a minute. "So, how do I activate it?" he said. "It works like any other Dijitsu," Kyuubi laughed. "Now, focus your chakra on your eyes, or in this case, your eyes, and say its name, which could be Sharingan, Menjikyu Sharingan, or Waikyoku Sharingan. Then, activate it and use it. I want you to spend the remaining time until your small group returns to Konoha reading the movements of everything in the forest." With his left eye closed, Naruto looked around the forest and was astounded at how much the Sharingan did. It was as if everything went into super ultra slow motion at his will. He watched in fascination as he could actually count the number of times a hummingbird's wings beat as it flew by. Naruto nodded, focused his chakra on his right eye, and whispered, "Sharingan." Suddenly, his light brown eye turned a deep red, and 3 black tomo marks appeared around the pupil. He sat for hours and observed everything in the forest, examining everything he could to the smallest details, examining body language and body language. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX return to Konoha, during which the Kyuubi's carnage on the bridge had been cleaned up and the bridge was completed. Naruto never revealed his Sharingan to Kakashi or any of his teammates, since doing so would have infuriated Sasuke and prompted too many questions from everyone. After all, the Sharingan doesn't simply appear in someone's eyes. When it was time for them all to depart, they did so swiftly, skipping any sort of grand ceremony the town might have organized for the bridge's official opening. Aside from the battles with Zabuza and the Demon Brothers, they returned to Konoha in roughly the same amount of time. Based on the guards' reactions at the gate, Naruto considered making another mask, because if they were going to harass him for 5 minutes about, "Dude, what the hell happened to your face?" He might be better off staying unknown, he thought, but ultimately he decided against it because the mask would only be necessary to keep another secret. One was enough. After passing through the gates, they went to the Hokage Tower to report on their mission. Naruto soon realized that he looked much more menacing without his mask on because of his scars and his two-toned eyes, which made many villagers flee when he glared at them. He even succeeded in making his right eye flash red without completely changing into the Sharingan. Once Sarutobi recovered from his shock at seeing Naruto without a mask and the question of where the eye came from was resolved, they swiftly ascended the stairs of the Hokage Tower and entered his room after navigating the town without incident. "It's a good thing that you got back when you did. Any later and you would have been unable to participate. Give these to the three of them and explain everything to them, and inform them of the deadline, as it's rather close. Aside from that, you're dismissed," said Sarutobi, who was searching through one of the many drawers on his large desk before taking 3 papers out of the drawer and giving them to Kakashi. "Take one," he said, nodding as he accepted the 3 papers from Sarutobi, bowed, and led his group out of the tower, across the street, and then leaned against a building with his back. They all quickly reached for one of the 3 documents. "Those are entry forms. The Chunin exams are upon us and it's up to you 3 if you want to participate or not. You must come to a decision very quickly though. The exams begin tomorrow morning. I would have liked to train you guys all a bit longer, but our mission took longer than expected. I think you're all ready to partake in the exam, but the decision is up to you in the end. If you're taking it, fill out the papers and report to room 301 in the academy tomorrow morning for the first part of the exams, that's all, see you guys around," and they all looked at him their choices. With a sly smile, Naruto pulled out a pen from his bag and said, "I don't know about you two, but I'm going to kick my ass and turn into a Chunin." Sasuke and Hinata both grinned and imitated his actions when completing the form since they didn't want to be left out or behind. "Naruto, seeing as we've got nothing better to do you want to get some lunch?" Hinata asked Naruto after they had all completed their forms and had nothing else to do. "Yeah, sure, I know this great restaurant on the other end of the village, they have some great food," was one of Naruto's favorite lines. He grinned at the fact that she still liked him despite his scars, especially since she knew he was keeping secrets from her and that she was still willing to pursue him. Though she wasn't quite as bashful as she had seemed in the academy, Hinata was still afraid of Naruto, not because of the way he looked, but rather because of his thoughts and opinions about her. With a furious nod, she trailed behind Naruto as he led the way to the restaurant, leaving Sasuke behind. That afternoon, Naruto noticed that he didn't have to pretend to be happy around Hinata because there was something about her that made him happy, and he could definitely get used to that. He also noticed that people didn't glare at him nearly as harshly when Hinata was around, probably because they were afraid of the consequences if word got out that they were glaring at the Hyuga heiress, but he liked it anyhow. Hinata spent the majority of their time with her narrating some of the few amusing incidents that occur in the Hyuga estate, such as when her sister, Hanabi, despite her great worth, was unable to locate her hair ties, which were actually already in her hair. The poor girl spent the entire day searching for them, leaving laughing clan members everywhere she went. Naruto laughed, but he understood the girl's feelings, having spent a good 45 minutes trying to find a kunai holster that he had previously worn, and even searching for his hitayite while it was strapped to his arm. The sun was already beginning to set when their lunch was over, so Naruto walked her until they were just out of sight of the Hyuga estate. He then wished her a restful night's sleep in preparation for tomorrow's tests before retiring home for the night. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX to meet his squad. Unfortunately for him, he heard someone calling for assistance from the alley as he was hopping along the rooftops. It was during these moments that he wished he had less empathy. He halted and leaped into the alley. The kid who was screaming for help turned out to be Konohamaru, the grandson of the Hokage. Naruto had seen the kid around the village before, and he was a bit of a brat. The person who was attacking him, however, was tall and likely a year younger than Naruto. He was wearing a black body suit with an odd black hood with cat ears, and to top it all off, he had face paint on and an odd object wrapped in bandages on his back. Like everyone else who sees Naruto for the first time, the kid in black turned to face him when he landed in the alley and performed a second take at seeing his scarred face and two-toned eyes. "What the hell do you want, freak?" he cried. Naruto groaned. Why couldn't someone come up with a unique name for him? "Well, for starters, how about you let him go?" It was becoming old, and it was always either freak or demon. The child laughed. No, I think I'll just kick his ass, then when I'm done with him, I'll kick your ass." Naruto breathed deeply. That would be a very stupid decision to make. That boy that you're harassing happens to be the grandson of the Hokage, so if you plan to get your ass landed in prison, go right ahead, and kicking my ass? Well, it wouldn't be a good decision for you to get your ass kicked right before you take the Chunin exams. What did you just say? You think you can take me on? He cried, as his hand slowly crept towards the thing on his back. It appeared as like the child had pressed a button because he threw Konohamaru to the side, landing him on his feet but stumbling. Think? No, I know I can beat you, Naruto moaned. Kankuro, you are a disgrace to Suna, and if you ever do something like this again, I'll kill you, said the black-clad boy, reaching for the mysterious object on his back. However, just as he was about to release it, a whirl of sand caught their attention on a nearby tree limb, and a short, red-headed boy with a large gourd on his back appeared. Well, I know who wears the pants on your team, Naruto said, laughing out loud at the boy in black, who was later identified as Kankuro. The redhead turned to face Naruto and remarked, "You seem confident in yourself, who are you?" while Kankuro stared at him but said nothing. Smirked Naruto, "You know, it's customary to introduce yourself first before asking someone their name, but I'm Uzumaki Naruto, and I'll be looking forward to kicking your asses in the exams. I am Sabaku no Gaara, and I will take pleasure in murdering you," the youngster said, squinting at Naruto. With a laugh, Naruto said, "Great. I'll see you there then Gaara, later." Naruto hurried out of the alley and made his way back to the academy. When Naruto got at the academy, he caught up with his two companions. The three of them entered together and headed upstairs, only to see a sizable genin crowd on the second floor, huddled around two men who were blocking the door to the incorrect room. Before Sasuke could say anything foolish about the genjutsu, Naruto pushed his comrades past the genin and up the stairs to the third floor. When they reached the third floor, they discovered the dojo was eerily empty. Naruto pushed his team forward once more, and they entered a large test room filled with genin, only to discover that they were surrounded by a literal sea of them. Surprisingly, the members of teams 8 and 10 were also present, and everyone's eyes snapped to the newcomers before turning to Naruto and then to the customary gasps and whispers. Naruto moaned and screamed for them to stop talking after the rookie 9 had surrounded him and begun questioning him in less than a second. "Now, one at a time damn it," he said. "Is that why you always wore that mask? To hide those scars?" Sakura pushed her way through the throng. Naruto sighed. "No, I wore the mask to hide the perfectly fine side of my face, of course that's why I wore the mask." Shikamaru inquired, "Sue, why'd you stop wearing it then?" The statement, "I broke it on our last mission, didn't bother to remake it," was shrugged by Naruto. "Okay, so why are your eyes two different colors?" Kiba then inquired. "Because one of them isn't mine, duh," was Naruto's response to Kiba, who seemed to think it was the most foolish question ever. Kiba and the majority of the rookie 9 both winced. "So, where'd the eye come from?" Ino said. "Where else would it come from?" "A person," shrugged Naruto.